It was said that she was the orphan of a comrade in arms of the Marquis of Xingwu, who fought on the distant northern Yan battlefield. Before the girl's father met with misfortune, he entrusted his young daughter to the Marquis of Xingwu, and before he died, the two agreed on a betrothal when they were infants. Li Hao was speechless about this sudden betrothal. Fine, you fight your battles, and it does not matter if you never return. But such a big matter. Did anyone ask for my opinion? Despite his irritation, Li Hao did not take out his accumulated resentment on this little girl. So, in the vast expanse of the mountain and river courtyard, there was now another small figure aside from Li Hao. The little girl's name was Bian Rushu, and she had delicate and exquisite features, her skin fair and tender, like a porcelain doll. When she first arrived in this strange place, the little girl was timid and shy, asking everyone she caught, "Where is my daddy? Where did my daddy go?" The little girl was looking for her daddy, but no one in the courtyard dared to answer, and some of the softer-hearted servant girls could only secretly wipe away their tears in a corner upon hearing her. The little girl lost her appetite and grew thinner by the day. Seeing that none of the house servants in the courtyard knew how to comfort a child, Li Hao was annoyed. It seemed he had been too competent himself, not training these people properly. He had no choice but to step in himself, using a mixture of intimidation and coaxing to tell the little girl, "Your daddy is hiding somewhere, and he will only come out if you behave and eat well." Huh. The little girl, with her innocent tear-filled eyes, asked, "Is Shuer not being good? Why is daddy hiding from Shuer, and where is he hiding?" "Hiding where?" Li Hao, looking at the little girl's pitiable expression, softened a bit and said a cliché line, pointing to the sky, "Your daddy is up there on one of those stars." From that point on, every night in the courtyard had a small figure gazing up at the sky. The myriad stars and their silver glow shone down, illuminating the solitary little shape. In the house, another little figure, who lay on top of a chessboard, would order the house servants every day to fan beside the little girl, driving away mosquitoes so she wouldn't be bitten all over. Half a month flew by, and the military strongman Lin Xianxia had prepared the Foundation Establishment elixir for both Li Hao and Bian Rushu. Both of them underwent Foundation Establishment in the same year. Foundation Establishment is the foundation of the martial arts. The elixir for Foundation Establishment, made from countless precious medicinal ingredients, immerse the body every day, soaking in a medicinal bath to forge a body suitable for martial training. As one of the top elite families of Dayu, the Divine General Mansion had abundant resources. From Li Hao's Foundation establishment onward, countless precious medicinal herbs and rare treasures were sent to the mountain and river courtyard, inexhaustible like snowflakes. The elixir for Foundation Establishment was divided into 3 grades: common, rare, and supreme. The elixir used by Li Hao was naturally of the top quality, with a 1,000-year treasure as the primer, supplemented by many other precious medicinal ingredients, capable of nurturing an 8th-layer battle physique. Once one embarked on the path of cultivation, one could break through the first realm in just 2 to 3 short years. Martial arts is a crucible of money, and this top-grade Foundation Establishment elixir, used up daily, was costly to maintain for half a year to a year. Only top-tier elite families like the Divine General Mansion could afford to use it so freely. In the yard, 2 large medicinal tubs, Li Hao and Bian Rushu, were soaking in them separately. However, the area around the little girl's tub was screened by curtains with female attendants looking after her. These female attendants were different from maidservants. They had some cultivation and were akin to trusted aides within the household. On Li Hao's side, Lin Xianxia personally supervised him. At that moment, the dignified dark purple elixir was surging against Li Hao's body, his chin submerged in the liquid, leaving only his nose exposed for breathing. An indescribable bitter scent from the elixir filled his nose, like swallowing bitter lotus, which kept Li Hao's spirits acutely alert. Li Hao asked, "Can I drink it?" Lin Xianxia replied, "It's better not to." The elixir was potent, and the intestines of children couldn't absorb it. It could actually cause harm instead. Moreover, it's for external application. Just as Li Hao was focusing his mind, a string of text suddenly appeared before his eyes. Detecting unknown substance, analyzing. Analysis failed, automatically isolated. Li Hao, what's going on? Damn. Could it be the kind of situation I think it is? Li Hao was full of doubts. Next to the medicinal tub, Xianxia's calm face was gradually turning grim. As time passed, his brow slowly furrowed into a deep Chuan character. Li Hao noticed his expression and couldn't help but feel a lurch in his heart. He asked, "Uncle Lin, is there some kind of problem?" Xianxia wasn't surprised by Li Hao's perceptiveness. He had realized over the days that this little young master was more precocious than his peers, extremely intelligent, as smart as a 5 or 6-year-old child. However, he was not in the mood to talk to Li Hao right now. Suddenly, he quickly lifted the curtain to check on the situation on the other side, and soon after, returned to Li Hao's side, his face looking extremely ugly. "Uncle Lin?" Xianxia reached his hand toward the edge of the medicinal tub, feeling closely, his gaze becoming complicated. He looked at the child in the tub, wanting to speak, but then the words stopped at his lips. "Uncle Lin, just say what you want to say," Li Hao couldn't help but say. Xianxia was slightly surprised and took a look at him. Although Li Hao was more precocious, he was still just a 3-year-old child. Could he actually tell that she was hesitating to speak? However, her mood was so bad at the moment that she didn't think too much about it and just said, regardless of whether Li Hao could understand, "When it comes to martial arts talent, besides the bone measurement at age 5, which can directly reveal it, it is actually hinted at during Foundation establishment. The faster the absorption of Foundation establishment medicine, the higher the martial arts aptitude. But young master, your absorption speed is too slow." She looked at Li Hao inside the medicine tub, her eyes revealing incomprehensible doubt and pity. Then, she thought for a moment and muttered to herself, "Maybe today was just an accident, my refining mistake. I will check more carefully tomorrow." A chill went through Li Hao's heart. Was that hint just now, really, about the Foundation establishment medicine? What do you mean by too slow absorption? It's all being blocked, there's nothing to absorb. Li Hao was speechless in his heart. Was this panel going to adhere completely to the game's settings? He had discovered this over the past year while exploring the panel. Since there was no combat system in the game, it seemed that he was also estranged from martial arts. Or more accurately, estranged from practicing martial arts. If he tried to cultivate combat skills, it wouldn't give experience. Only the arts defined in the game had an experience bar. Although he could improve himself through diligent practice, in this case, it would be better to go back to pursuing art since it was more rewarding. At least experience would soar, points would be allocated, and one could create their own cultivation technique. Overnight, that would surpass decades of hard training. It's just that now, it's a pity for all these resources piled up around him. If fully used, they could at least nurture a first-rate martial artist. Speaking of which, since this extraordinary medicine that far exceeds modern elements cannot be absorbed, why was the poison before effective? Or was it not effective? Did I just fall asleep and not notice the prompt? Maybe whether or not I'll awaken the divine blood in the future will be the judgment. However, that woman had said that awakening divine blood had a chance, not certainty. Forget it, regardless. Whether harm was avoided was due to your ability, but this bill certainly cannot be written off. Don't lose heart, I'll try again tomorrow. What do you mean by too slow absorption? It's all being blocked, there's nothing to absorb. Li Hao was speechless in his heart. Was this panel going to adhere completely to the game's settings? He had discovered this over the past year while exploring the panel. Since there was no combat system in the game, it seemed that he was also estranged from martial arts. Or, more accurately, estranged from practicing martial arts. If he tried to cultivate combat skills, it wouldn't give experience. Only the arts defined in the game had an experience bar. Although he could improve himself through diligent prax. If it really doesn't work, I'll inform Lord Hao. He will definitely come up with a solution for you. As Li Hao pondered, Xianxia reassured him, although she didn't know if Li Hao could understand. There's no need. Li Hao waved his hand slightly, ready to climb out of the medicine tub. Since the Foundation establishment medicine was being blocked by the panel, soaking in it any longer was pointless. Don't get up yet, let's try again. Keep soaking for a bit longer, Xianxia said immediately when she saw Li Hao getting out. Li Hao shook his head and said, "It's no use. You have to obey." Xianxia's face became stern, taking the matter seriously. Tice, in this case, it would be better to go back to pursuing art since it was more rewarding. At least, experience would soar, points would be allocated, and one could create their own cultivation technique. Li Hao was dumbfounded and could only say, "I'll go check on the little girl first." As he spoke, he lifted the curtain and came to the little girl's medicine tub and immediately saw that the Foundation establishment medicine that had been poured in, identical to his, was now almost clear water turned from purple, with only wisps of faint purple liquid like mist still drifting in it. Brother Hao? Bian Rushou looked up at Li Hao from the medicine tub with a puzzled expression, being too young to understand discretion, simply wearing a look of incomprehension. Uncle Lin, considering the little girl's absorption speed, how would you rate her talent? Li Hao didn't turn around and asked Xianxia behind him. Xianxia was feeling depressed and puzzled, but when she heard this, she couldn't help but chuckle. Despite being the same age, this little fellow always seemed so precociously serious in front of Shuer. Her absorption speed is considered very good. Xianxia had already checked before, and now her eyes reflected some emotion. If the blood melting at age 4 goes smoothly, then by the time of the bone measurement at 5, with the top resources of the Divine General Mansion, her warrior physique could very well leap to the 8th layer and maybe even the 9th layer, ranking her among the top prodigies. 9th layer? And Li Hao was puzzled. Xianxia was patient with the young master of the household, regardless of his understanding. Since the child had asked, she, acting as a temporary teacher, ought to answer. After listening to Xianxia's detailed explanation, Li Hao finally understood. It turned out that Foundation establishment, blood melting, and bone measurement altogether were known as 3rd, 6th, and 9th layers. Foundation establishment medicine is divided into 3 layers. Blood melting into 6 layers, and bone measurement aptitude into 9 layers. A 1st to 3rd layer physique would be of ordinary aptitude and considered lower grade. A 4th to 6th layer physique would be among the elite, regarded as middle grade. A 7th layer is already termed a genius. An 8th layer can make a name across a province. A 9th layer physique is already the most top-notch martial arts constitution, belonging to the level of unrivaled geniuses. With such a top-tier constitution, breaking through realms would be as easy as eating and drinking, and they could generally reach the 4th and 5th realm. As for higher realms, apart from talent, one also needs some other elements, like one's own understanding, perseverance, destiny, opportunities, etc. Li Hao turned to look at the little girl in the medicine tub, his eyes showing some astonishment. Will this little girl be a talent who will shake the world in the future? In his mind, he pictured the image of the little snotty-nosed girl standing proudly among a crowd, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Xianxia looked at Li Hao, her eyes filled with worry. Indeed, he was a child. He seemed clever, but after all, he was only 3 years old. He still didn't understand the magnitude of what happened today. The likelihood that there was a problem with the Foundation establishment medicine was remote, and this also meant he might turn out to be a martial arts invalid, unable to cultivate. In this family of warriors, especially being a son of the Li family, unable to practice, he couldn't even imagine how cruel this would be. Chapter 5. The Ultimate. Translator, 549,690,339. An hour passed. The medicinal concoction in Bian Rushi's tub had completely cleared, leaving no trace of the medicinal liquid. The maids dressed her in clean, new clothes and dried her hair. Standing silently beside Li Hao's tub, she did not understand the significance of all this. She just quietly waited for Li Hao to emerge. In contrast, under Xianxia's insistent demands, Li Hao could only obediently soak in his tub. The color of the liquid inside his tub remained a glaring purple. The female servant, accompanying Bian Rushou, glanced over and was dumbfounded. As another hour went by, other house servants and maids heard the news and rushed over to take a look. All of them were shocked. Having been influenced year-round within the Divine General Mansion, they naturally understood what this signified. They looked at each other at this moment, each seeing in the other's eyes a sky that had fallen. The noble son of the martial marquis being unable to practice martial arts? This was the bloodline of the Li family. Such a thing was simply unbelievable. But the reality was right in front of them. The whole courtyard fell silent very quickly. A house servant snapped out of it and, in a flustered rush, ran off. Before long, mountain and river courtyard filled with a multitude of brightly colored figures. Ladies from various courtyards arrived. They gathered around the medicinal tub, and upon hearing from the servants next to them the duration of Li Hao's soak, everyone was in disbelief. Lu Yue Rong stood in the crowd, her heart skipping a beat. Could it be that medicine? But she had not heard of such a severe side effect from that medicine. Her chest felt panicked, but she remained composed on the surface, her expression turning to one of urgency and sorrow. Meanwhile, within the tub, Li Hao, who felt life was no longer worth living, also saw the second wife with her outstanding acting skills. From her eyes, Li Hao even detected a hint of genuine panic. Had the second wife been startled? Li Hao sneered inwardly. As the courtyard grew increasingly noisy, the chief wife wore a stern face and ordered the servants to leave, only allowing the ladies from various courtyards to stay. She instructed that this matter must not be spread and must not be leaked. Seeing that the Foundation establishment elixir showed no signs of diminishing, Lin Haixia's heart went completely cold. This couldn't even be described as slow. He thought of a terrible constitution and shivered. Could it be that the Lord's Kylan child was indeed a total waste who couldn't cultivate martial arts? Without continuing any further, Lin Haixia lifted Li Hao out of the tub. Seeing how Li Hao's body had become oxygen-deprived and pale, his skin wrinkled and contracted, the ladies looked on with various expressions in their eyes. They learned that Li Hao had been soaking for 6 hours. Yet the Foundation establishment elixir showed no change whatsoever, highlighting the gravity of the situation. Lu Yue Rong, seeing that even Li Hao's lips had turned white from the soak, was certain that this was not a ruse. Her heart tightened. She had only intended to destroy the boy's divine blood, not completely ruin him. After all, becoming a complete invalid would make the matter too suspicious. This was the powerful bloodline of the Li family. Unable to cultivate? If the reason were to be investigated later, the first to snap out of it was the chief wife. She immediately instructed Lin Haixia to take good care of Hauer and had her own maids bring some warm and tonic medicinal soups to nourish Li Hao's weakened body. The next day, Lin Haixia prepared 2 tubs of Foundation establishment elixir for Li Hao and Bian Rushu to soak in separately. Lin Haixia watched intently as Li Hao entered the bath. Li Hao felt somewhat helpless, knowing it was a futile effort and a waste of herbs, but he could not win against the other party and only complied. He estimated it would not be long before they gave up hope. At that moment, the same font prompt as yesterday appeared. Detection of unknown substance, analyzing. Analysis failed, automatic isolation initiated. Li Hao had expected this and was not too surprised. He obediently stayed in the medicinal bath, fiddling with his toes out of sheer boredom. As time passed and the elixir stayed unchanged, the short man from the military completely lost his composure and let out a low growl. How can this be? Lin Haixia was agitated, seemingly more incredulous than Li Hao. He paced back and forth beside the tub, striking his own head. There's nothing wrong with the elixir. It can't be wrong. Could it be that the Lord's child truly cannot cultivate? This was the Li family bloodline. Li Hao didn't feel too upset. After all, he had the panel and could become stronger without relying on these elixirs. But seeing his teacher so distressed, he felt somewhat awkward and consoled him. Uncle Lin, it's okay. Don't be so sad. Hearing this, Lin Haixia's body shook. He looked at the child in the tub and suddenly felt tears welling up. The child? You don't know what fate lies ahead of you. Seeing the child's optimistic and untainted eyes, Lin Haixia felt as if his heart were being torn apart. The commanderin, Chief's only son, could this really be his future? But he could do nothing about it. In Li Hao's case, he could only think of one possibility: innate meridian obstruction. This was the classic sign of a martial arts cripple. If it had happened in an ordinary family, it would be normal, as 8 or 9 out of 10 commoners are like this, not an extraordinarily rare occurrence. But this is the Li family that produces true dragons generation after generation. Even the least talented children of the Li family are superior compared to others. Not to mention those true dragons of the Li family, aren't they all figures renowned throughout the world? And yet, this child... Lin Haixia was choked with emotion, rendered speechless. Even on the battlefield, where he could look directly upon mountains of corpses and seas of blood without changing color, at this moment, he dared not look at the child any longer. Those clean, innocent eyes were heartbreaking. It's okay, it's okay. Seeing that the man was genuinely sorrowful for him and was not pretending, Li Hao felt a warmth in his heart. He stood up from the medicinal bath, pulling at the man's trouser leg, trying to offer some comfort. The second Foundation establishment elixir was declared a failure. The news spread throughout the Divine General Mansion like a hurricane. With this, the news of Li Hao's inability to cultivate was solidified. The madams and house servants of the various Li family courtyards were all shaken and incredulous. In the following days, Li Hao no longer soaked in the medicinal baths. Instead, people came one after another to examine his body, but all left shaking their heads. Li Hao also took the opportunity to overhear them, learning that in their eyes, his condition was one of a martial arts disabled body. This physique did not completely preclude cultivation, but it would be exceedingly difficult. Unable to absorb elixirs or external energy, one could only rely on grueling self-cultivation for a modicum of achievement. Moreover, one could only cultivate up to the second realm. To break through, one needed to connect with the energy of heaven and earth, and thus the second realm was the limit. The news apparently reached the Northern Yan battlefield. Not long after, an urgent family letter was sent back over 1,000 miles. Yet the information in the family letter once again shocked the Divine General Mansion. The Grand Marshal had actually reached the three immortal realms. The letter stated that the lady of the house must not give up on Hao-Er. No matter how arduous or difficult, she must see to it that he starts on the martial path. Even just beginning would suffice. In the future, once the Divine Blood awakens, he could still achieve something. Although he might no longer have the potential to become a genius, he could at least secure a centurion's position in the military. Thus, he would not fall short of the name of a Li family boy. The lady of the house was from the He family, named He Jianlan. He Jianlan, though over 60, appeared only to be in her 40s. After reading the family letter, she sighed deeply. Hao-Er's fate is bitter. It's all because of that despicable woman. Nobody knew whom she referred to as that despicable woman. In the days that followed, Li Hao felt as if things had returned to normal. Foundation establishment was no longer necessary. It was said that when he turned 4, they would try the blood melting for him. As such, Li Hao, having nothing else to do, found even more time to secretly play chess, and his experience points grew quietly and rapidly. However, the news of Li Hao's martial arts disabled body somehow leaked out and spread beyond the mansion. Inside Qingzhou City, the tea houses and restaurants suddenly had a new topic of discussion, but most people took it as just a storyteller's fancy and didn't truly believe it. After all, he was a Li family boy. But to some enemies of the Li family in the royal court, the news immediately caught their attention. Upon sending people to carefully investigate and confirming that it was true, many within the family were both delighted and astonished. They were delighted that the Li family, glorious for 1,000 years, finally showed signs of a failing bloodline. The astonishment was due to the depths of the Grand Marshal's concealment, having achieved the three immortal realms long ago, and only now being revealed. Fortunately, his son was disabled in martial arts. Otherwise, in the future, he would likely have become another Li Junye. In the blink of an eye, Li Hao turned 4. After a year of sneaking around and working hard, Li Hao had successfully entered the second tier of Chess Tao. He also gained another artistic skill point. Without hesitation, Li Hao used the artistic skill point in Sword Dao. His Sword Dao was thus elevated to the second tier. Compared to the first tier's overwhelming barrage of information, the now 4-year-old Li Hao could barely withstand it, only feeling a slight swelling in his head. With the improvement in Sword Dao, the skills on his panel changed as well. Name: Li Hao. Age: 4. Cultivation level: Mortal. Sword Dao, second tier. Skills: Endless Sea Tide, Perfected. Forbidden. Known Art: Chess Tao. Chess Tao, second tier. 0-1000. Chess Catalog Collection: 0. Artistic Skill Points: 0. However, after advancing Chess Tao to the second tier, Li Hao found that playing against himself no longer earned experience points. He needed to find someone to compete against. Chapter 6. The Three Holy Lands. Translator: 549,690,339. In addition, as his swordsmanship advanced, Li Hao had perfected his Endless Sea Tide technique, progressing from perfect proficiency to flawless. Rich memories of swordsmanship made Li Hao feel as though he had been wielding a sword for decades. Flaws started to appear in the title sword skill, which he had originally mastered to the pinnacle of perfection in his eyes. These were the inherent flaws of the sword skill itself. In other words, they were the limits of what the sword move could achieve. After all, no sword technique could cover every aspect perfectly. Like an extremely perfect stick, it could be used for slashing and smashing, but it couldn't cut others. Now, the shortcomings in that sword skill Li Hao had compensated for through his own understanding of swordsmanship. Li Hao thought of the swordsmanship instructor from the military who taught Li Qianfeng and said that beyond the 3 realms of technique, there existed a 4th layer. Today, Li Hao had reached that 4th realm flawless! But, although his swordsmanship had improved and the title sword skill had attained flawlessness, Li Hao had not executed it even once. He had only pushed it to the limit in his mind. Yet, Li Hao had a feeling that as long as he had a sword in his hand, he could execute it exactly as envisioned. However, he couldn't predict what kind of toll it would take on his body when the time came. His current child's body was far too fragile, and even if he were to grow up, he feared that a normal body wouldn't be able to withstand such a dazzling technique. An extremely strong physique was required. No matter how exquisite the sword technique is, if it can't be executed, it ultimately remains a moon reflected on the water. Perhaps I should find a body refinement cultivation technique. I wonder if I could include one. The Li family's martial arts secret archives were countless and varied in nature. All of these were housed in the Listening Rain Tower within the Divine General Mansion. In Qingzhou City, there are 3 renowned holy places where multitudes of martial artists long to visit in their dream. One is the Black and White Hall of Tan Palace Academy, one is the 100 Birds Garden of Rouge Pavilion, and the last is the Listening Rain Tower owned by the Li family of the Divine General Mansion. Li Hao planned to look for an opportunity to visit there, but before that, the special blood prepared for him within the mansion had already been concocted. This year, like Beyond Rishu, he would undergo the blood melting with the same age group. The blood used for blood melting was still of the highest quality, a master-level potion refined from the bones of a millennium. Great demon. Furthermore, it was said that the martial lord of the Northern Yan's front line had, especially for his adopted father, slain a great demon with 3,000 years of cultivation and sent it back to the Divine General Mansion, elevating the grade of this blood-melting potion to another extreme. A great demon of 3,000 years was nearly as old as the age of the Great Yu Dynasty. Beyond awe, Li Hao also had a new understanding of that man's strength. With Lin Haixia's assistance, blood melting commenced. The crimson liquid exuding an exotic fragrance covered Li Hao's body. Li Hao was tense. Before long, the familiar text appeared before his eyes again. Unknown substance detected, beginning analysis. Analysis failed. Automatically isolated. Li Hao was completely speechless. But this time, he felt some heartache. After all, this was something the man had prepared for him at great risk, and now it was wasted. Lin Haixia shared in that heartbreak. When he saw that Li Hao's body had no abnormal reactions and that he was trembling slightly more than Li Hao himself, it looked like Lin was even more excited. But everything seemed to have a trace to follow. Having experienced the failure of Foundation establishment before, this time he didn't lose his composure but silently closed his eyes for a moment, restraining his feelings of loss and sadness. Uncle Lin, did it fail? Lin Haixia gently opened his eyes, his gaze slightly weary. He looked at Li Hao's young face, inwardly bitter smiling, as despite being reborn into the golden cradle of the Divine General Mansion, the countless top resources prepared for Li Hao by the Divine General Mansion were something this boy couldn't enjoy. It was hard to tell if his fate was good or bad. Uncle Lin, do you think I can give this special blood to that little girl? Li Hao asked. Lin Haixia nodded slightly. At this point, since Li Hao was not blessed to benefit from it, the next best thing was to make it available for the little girl. That's great. Seeing that nothing was wasted, Li Hao smiled. Lin Haixia also revealed a slight smile, telling Li Hao, "Young master, I'll scrape it off for you, then you go rest." His smile was feigned, carrying a touch of sorrow in his eyes. Okay. Li Hao nodded, not pointing out what went unsaid. The news of Li Hao's failed blood melting quickly spread to the ears of the various ladies of the courtyards. In Shuiwa Courtyard, Lu Yue Rong slightly raised her eyebrows upon hearing the quiet report from a maidservant by her side, though her face showed little joy, just a faint shake of her head. She had secretly inquired on Mount Wuliang and knew the medicine wouldn't cause such side effects, which meant this boy was naturally defective. It was only his luck to have been born into the Li family and in Ji Qingqing's belly. Had she known earlier, she wouldn't have even needed that medicine. A defective being, even with divine blood, what could he amount to? On the contrary, it would only serve to highlight her own son Xianfeng's superiority. After all, when the time came, both were third generation of the Li family, both possessing divine blood, but one would be useless, while the other a true dragon among men. Everyone knew how the old matriarch would choose. After Li Hao's blood-melting failure, the little girl's fusion was outstanding. Having absorbed the foreign blood prepared for Li Hao, Beyond Ruche's martial talent was further enhanced. In the coming days, all she needed was to be nurtured slowly, and at the age of 5, the bone measurement would reveal the specific outcomes. Li Hao, upon hearing the news, was happy for the little girl, but he himself had encountered a troublesome issue. No longer could he gain experience from chess Tao through self-play, so he had to find the maids around him to accompany him in his chess games. Though these maids didn't dare contradict their young master's daily commands, they were all hesitant and afraid to agree to this request. These servants knew Li Hao had failed his blood melting and possessed no talent for martial arts, yet now he still wanted to play chess. They were aware that the young master had been plopped before a chessboard since childhood, seemingly born with a natural talent for chess Tao. But in a military family of such standing, such talent was trivial. It was even seen as indulging in frivolities that could lead to ruin. If the ladies found out they were accompanying Li Hao in such an irresponsible activity, they wouldn't be able to guarantee that the wrath derived from Li Hao's inability to practice martial arts wouldn't be taken out on them. Smart as they were, these servants in the Divine General Mansion dared not touch such bad luck. Thus, having no other choice, Li Hao had to find Xianxia. Knowing he wanted her to play chess with him, Xianxia was speechless, unfamiliar with such things, and somewhat helpless towards the young master's optimistic ignorance. However, she did not outright refuse. Perhaps this last year before the bone measurement ceremony is this child's final period of happiness, Xianxia thought to herself. She agreed to Li Hao's request, and after sorting out Beyond Ruche's situation, she started accompanying Li Hao in his chess games. From then on, a common scene in the courtyard was the two figures, one tall, one short, playing opposite each other in the pavilion, with a little maid standing on tiptoes nearby, peering over. Now and then, the voice of the child bent over the chessboard could be heard shouting. "That's not right. You have to place it at the intersection of the lines, not inside the squares. That's not cheating, that's called capturing. M. This has already been surrounded and is dead. You can't place any more inside. You're so silly, I've already told you 3 times." After one game of chess, Li Hao would be exhausted, having gained just 1 point of experience. This was far more tiring than playing against himself. Whenever the opponent broke a rule, the game would be invalidated, so he had to teach while playing, explaining the rules to his opponent. Xianxia, who had thought she was merely humoring a child, did not expect there to be so many rules and regulations, and her face showed signs of strain. After several days, Xianxia disappeared, leaving Li Hao stamping his little feet in frustration. Having no choice, he decided to first pay a visit to Listening Rain Tower. Listening Rain Tower stood north of Divine General Mansion, leaning against the mountain. The Divine General Mansion covered an extensive area, so vast that one could even ride a horse carriage within it. Apart from the ladies' courtyards, there were also sceneries like mountains, lakes, and garden. Weathered through the years, Listening Rain Tower appeared to be nothing more than an old building midway up the mountain, quite unremarkable. Yet in the world, countless eyes yearned to glimpse its true face. However, all those gazes dared not cross that golden wall towering above. Accompanied by the old steward Zhao from Mountain and River Courtyard, Li Hao arrived in front of the tower. Zhao put Li Hao down and with a tone of earnest caution advised, "Young master, this place is a crucial site for the Li family. Even if the ladies of the courtyards come, they must seek permission from the senior madam. Let's go back, shall we?" Aside from the direct second-generation descendants of the Li family, only 2 ladies could freely enter, Listening Rain Tower being the senior madam. "Didn't I ask you to send someone to notify them? I just came to look around. Should be fine, right?" Li Hao said nonchalantly, hands clasped behind his back. Zhao had long grown accustomed to the young master's precociously stern demeanor, baffled about whom he might have picked it up from, replying with a pained expression. But no reply has come yet, and the senior madam might not give her consent. "Although you are entitled to enter, young master, you are still very young after all." So what if I'm young? You look down on me, Li Hao said, keeping a straight face. I wouldn't dare, young master, Zhao hastily replied. Li Hao, bored by the exchange, quietly surveyed the listening rain tower before him. The ancient tower, aged and 7 stories high, had been the place where, after his bone measurement, Li Qianfeng reached the 9th rank war body. And that night, the woman sought permission from the senior madam to choose a martial art for her child. She found the Endless Sea at the top of the tower. There were a total of 4 styles within Endless Sea.
Each style was tremendously difficult, with rumors suggesting only the 3rd uncle had mastered the final style, almost cleaving half of Jingzhou with a single sword stroke. Chapter 7. Physical Body Path. Translator, 549,690,339. Eternal Spring Court. Yi Jianlan sat dignified on the smoothly polished Nenu armchair, listening to the young house servant's trembling report, a trace of movement stir in her heart. She had long heard that the child was precocious and very clever, but sadly lacked martial arts talent, wasting all that intelligence. Thinking of the letter from the Boer side of the Li family, Yi Jianlan sighed inwardly and said indifferently, Shuijian, keep an eye on the child. Just make sure he doesn't tear up the books. Yes. To the side, a woman with almond eyes and red lips, fair complexion, quietly answered. The directive for Eternal Spring Court was conveyed to the outside of Listening Rain Tower. Li Hao looked at the young girl who came to supervise, a bit surprised, but he did not mind, since it was quite normal for the lady of the house to not feel at ease, letting him enter the tower alone given his young age. Both house servants, but Zhao's status was clearly lower than that of this girl called Shujian, who stopped him from entering the tower.
I just came to look around. Should be fine, right? Li Hao said nonchalantly, hands clasped behind his back. Zhao had long grown accustomed to the young master's precociously stern demeanor, baffled about whom he might have picked it up from, replying with a pained expression, but no reply has come yet, and the senior madam might not give her consent. Although you are entitled to enter, young master, you are still very young after all. So what if I'm young? You look down on me, Li Hao said, keeping a straight face. I wouldn't dare, young master, Zhao hastily replied. Li Hao, bored by the exchange, quietly surveyed the listening rain tower before him. The ancient tower, aged and 7 stories high, had been the place where, after his bone measurement, Li Qianfeng reached the 9th rank war body. And that night, the woman sought permission from the senior madam to choose a martial art for her child. She found the Endless Sea at the top of the tower. There were a total of 4 styles within Endless Sea.
Shuijian followed Li Hao like a shadow, proper in her behavior, and even more dignified than the daughters of ordinary nobles. She watched the young master, who'd been the center of attention since birth, and curiosity glimmered in her eyes. He really does seem very precocious, and he even seems to be literate. And he's reading with such focus. Can he really understand it? As Li Hao read over the initial chapters repeatedly, trying to understand every word, a joyous message finally appeared before him. You have learned the basics. Do you wish to record this? Li Hao immediately chose yes. Soon after, a panel leaped before his eyes. Name, Li Hao. Age 4. Cultivation level, moral. Swordsmanship, level 2. Skill, Endless Sea Tide, exquisite, forbidden. Physical body path, not started. Skill, Stone Stand 100 refinements, not started, forbidden. Best Tao, level 2, 18-1000. Best manual collection, 0. Skill points, 0. Seeing the successful recording, Li Hao felt pleasantly surprised. His speculation was correct, and with this, he could officially start his cultivation. But before that, he needed to accumulate new skill points. Thinking of this, Li Hao's brows furrowed in worry.
Grinding experience by himself was fast, but playing against others was much slower. It took 3 days just to accumulate 18 experience points, and the scapegoat had been frightened away. He needed to find a stable scapegoat. Li Hao muttered to himself, stuffed the secret back on the shelf, and then turned to ask the young girl behind him, which floor has the best body refinement secrets? Zhuijian was a bit surprised. Does this child truly understand body refinement? Who taught him? Could it be that military officer who helped him with Foundation establishment? Martial meridians blocked, so he intends to pursue the pure body refinement path. Realization flickered in Shuijian's eyes as she replied softly. To answer the young master, Listening Rain Tower's strongest body refinement secrets are on the 6th floor. I will take you there. They're not on the 7th floor? Li Hao felt a tinge of disappointment, saying, the strongest should mean the only one, right? Because one text is complete and can be cultivated, while the other is incomplete, it can still be practiced, but not to the pinnacle, said Shuijian.
Li Hao was somewhat surprised. An incomplete text made it to the 6th floor? Soon. Under the little girl's guidance, Li Hao was carried up to the 6th floor. By his own efforts, he had already begun to tire by the 3rd floor. The higher up they went, the fewer the secret manuals on the floors became, and by the time they reached the 6th floor, there were only a few short bookshelves left. Glancing over them, it appeared that all the secret manuals combined might total to just 20 or 30 books. However, Li Hao didn't underestimate this number. With the 1,000 years of accumulation of the Li family, these 20 or 30 books would probably be invaluable if placed outside. Very quickly, Shuijian brought back the 2 body refinement secret manuals she had mentioned to Li Hao. One was called 1,000 Jiao's Holy Body. The other one was named Taichu. The covers were somewhat worn and damaged, likely to be treated as trash by ordinary households, used to prop up a wobbly table leg.
Grinding experience by himself was fast, but playing against others was much slower. It took 3 days just to accumulate 18 experience points, and the scapegoat had been frightened away. He needed to find a stable scapegoat, Li Hao muttered to himself, stuffed the secret back on the shelf,